Hi folks, today I'm going to be showing you how to paint up this Yeti. So we're going to be focusing on painting white fur. Alright, so first of all I've primed this. This is the Yeti from the Reaper Bones 3, I believe. And now I'm going in with Skeleton Horde Contrast. So I'm kind of using the contrast as a little bit of a cheat here, getting kind of a nice base layer. And really, if you were rushing on time, you could probably just do this and then a really quick white dry brush. That's essentially what I do, but I did a couple more steps. And the thing to remember when you're painting white fur is when you look at white fur, like in reality, it's not actually white. It's usually, the undertones in it are usually like a yellow or brown, and then the tips look white, and then again, if you've got like a polar bear, technically their fur is clear, but it looks that like white with a little bit of a yellow tinge to it. So using the contrast to get all of those creases, that kind of deeper yellowy brown color, this just, quick sped up the process. Now you could do this also with like a wash or an ink to get a similar effect. I just find I really love this Skeleton Horde contrast. I think it's my most used contrast paint. It has a lot of different applications and is a nice time saver for me. Alright, so now that's all dry, and you definitely want to give this plenty of time to dry because we're going to be going in and dry brushing. I started off with a layer of Screaming Skull. So this is a really pale, slightly off-white cream color to kind of help build those layers up. And just using a nice big fluffy brush, going all over the mini. I've talked about this before, but I use a makeup brush as a dry brush. It's really good for dry brushing large areas. Now later on I am going to go in with a smaller dry brush to get kind of in the nooks and crannies. I found that the large dry brush, I was struggling a little bit to get like between the legs and some of the spots under the arm and all of that. So now I'm going back in with Dead White and dry brushing this. And as you can see, I started out with that larger brush, started doing a little bit, and then decided to switch to a smaller brush. So there's that first coat of Dead White. And now I'm going to go in with a much, much smaller dry brush and do a second coat of Dead White. And I gave myself plenty of time for these coats to dry. So this is a type of project that I was painting a couple of these Yetis at the same time. So I'd do one layer and then I'd move on to the next. And usually by the time I was done with all four of them, when I went back to the first one, it was dry. There were a couple of times where with these dry brushes, where I dry brushed all of them, and then I went changed over a load of laundry. So these are the kind of steps that are good to do, and if you've got other chores you can kind of pop in and out and do. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint in like the eyes and the nostrils and the inside of the mouth. I'm using Model Color Black to paint in these bits, using a very fine brush and being pretty careful because I don't want to have to go back and redo bits. Now, because this is on the face part, I'm going to be painting in the face. So I don't, I can do some touch up. But I like to try and get some of these recessed areas sometimes before painting in the larger areas. I just find it's a little bit easier. I can go back in and do some touch-ups if needed, and all of that. And I will go back through and add a little bit of color to the eyes to add some dimension. But honestly, for the inside of the mouth and the nostrils, I just kind of left them black. You're not really going to see it that much. And I liked that nice bit of contrast. So now I'm going in with Cadian Fleshtone and painting the face, and I'll also do the hands and feet, all of those fleshy areas. I liked this. It's a little bit of a deeper flesh color. I thought that would be nice to bring a little bit more color to this mini rather than doing super, super pale. This has a nice, like, little bit of a red undertone, red pinky undertone to it. So, you know, it's not all completely white. Now you could do a very pale color as well, if you wanted to, but I thought, you know, bring out a little bit more color to this very white mini. Okay, so now you can see all of those flesh bits painted up. And now I'm going in and painting the tongue. So I've got a small brush here and loaded up with game color Bloody Red. And this is definitely red. Now don't worry, I'll tone it down a little bit with some shade later on. But again, I liked that pop of red, that idea of like this kind of mostly white thing, and then suddenly it opens its mouth and you're like, oh no. Those little stories I come up with as I'm painting minis. And hey, sometimes that's fun. If you mess up on something, you know, make it a story. If there's a bit of the mini that gets cut off or something, maybe that creature is missing a finger, and that can be part of the story. So now I'm going through with Agrax Earthshade and just doing a light wash over all of the skin. I'll also get this into the mouth to bring that red down a little bit. So this is just helping kind of add a little bit of dimension to the skin. And with also using it in the mouth, it helps tie things together. I like to try and use similar inks and washes over multiple colors. I find that it helps kind of tie bits of the mini together so they're not as like this part's the flesh, this part's the mouth. It looks more like a whole creature. So now that that's fully dried down, again, give yourself plenty of time for that to dry. Going in with Game Color Pale Flesh that I've watered down. And I started out and I realized this was a lot paler than I wanted. So I ended up mixing in some of the Cadian Fleshtone into the game color till I got it down. I think it was about probably 2-to-1 of pale flesh to Cadian Fleshtone to get this, and then I also watered it down. So, you know, giving that nice layer. It's going to go on brighter than it will dry down. I always have to remind myself. But yeah, sometimes, you know, you put it on and you realize, oh, this is not the color I wanted. Hey, it's paint. You can paint over. It's okay. So yeah, just going through and bringing out all of the highlights on the flesh, bringing a little bit more dimension to the face, the hands, and the feet. So now I'm going to come in and paint this staff club thing that he's holding. Just painting it in with Dryad Bark. I'll also use Dryad Bark for the rope of the necklace. Just basing that in. You know, I haven't really watered this down since I'm basing in the color, but I am using that wet palette, so that helps keep the paint wet and easy to manage. So now I'm going in with Doombull Brown on this necklace. And I think I actually ended up switching over to Golfag Brown. I want a little bit more like a reddy tone to this than the Doombull gave. Yeah, just adding, again, using similar colors, but a little different to make it look like, okay, it's a different material than the staff, but still kind of exists in the same color scheme. So now, yeah, you can see I went back in with the Golfag Brown, and now I'm going to dry brush Sylvaneth Bark dry onto the staff. I find that dry brushing is a really good way to give things kind of a wood texture, especially if you are a little bit heavier handed with the dry brush. It gives a little bit more kind of striations to it. So now that that's in, I'm going to go in, and I did also paint that stone bit with the model color black, and now I'm going in with Game Color Shadow Gray, and I'm just kind of bringing out some of the detail highlights. I was trying to go for a kind of volcanic stone looking, of course I can't remember the name of it now, look for it. And I also painted these stone dangly bits on the necklace with that same shadow gray. Thought it was a nice gray with a little bit of a blue tinge to it. So a nice contrast with all of the warm colors that you see in the rest of the mini. That's one thing to keep in mind, is like trying to balance warm and cool colors. I like to tend to have the main colors be either warm or cool, and then accent pieces that I want to stand out be on kind of the opposite side. So now I'm going back through with Dead White, and I am cleaning up the rope, whatever this is, holding this stone to this piece of wood. And the reason that I'm doing is because I'm going to use contrast again, and you just want to have that nice clean base to do the contrast. Now you could just base in a color and then go in and do, you know, the highlights and wash and stuff like that. This is just another area that I can kind of skip essentially one step by doing the cleaning up and then going back in with the contrast. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and hit up these eyes. I'm using the shadow gray, again keeping that color in, to paint in the pupils. I thought, you know, blue eyes on a Yeti, that seemed cool. And again, kind of balancing those warm, cool colors. So I'm just very small brush going in, trying to be careful so that I don't get anything on the rest of the face that I've already painted. But I do actually get a little bit on that eyebrow. And so all I do is go back in with a little bit of the Cadian Fleshtone and Pale Flesh and touch it up. So there you go. You've got some simple eyes. All right, so now going in with that contrast as I was talking about. And for this, I'm using Snakebite leather. This is also another contrast that I've used quite a lot. I just find it does straps, anything that you want to have a leather tone, especially small things. It just is a nice time saver that, you know, sometimes you want to take your time and paint every single thing and do multiple layers, and sometimes it's okay to just have something that saves some time. So now you can see I'm pretty much done with this Yeti. I just have the base to do, and again I'm using contrast, this time Apothecary White, to do the base. I figured snowy base, that makes sense. Now you could easily take some like snow effect or snow flocking onto the base. I think Ryan actually has done a video about snow. You can check it out. But you know, if you're looking for some time savers, sometimes the base is places that you can take a few shortcuts. And then there is this stone on his base, so I'm using contrast Basiliconum gray. I probably said that wrong. To bring that stone, give a little bit of different, make it a little bit different from the snow. Once I get it back into frame, there you can see. So that, you know, brings it out, makes it clear, oh, this is a stone, not like a weird smooth patch of snow. If you wanted to, you could probably make it like a cool blue tone, like magic crystal or something like that. But I'm pretty happy with this guy. So there you can see the finished Yeti with a nice white background. Perfect for any kind of winter encounter that you might have up your sleeve. And or also if you're painting anything that's got white fur, here's a nice kind of step-by-step process to get that look without having it look odd and like, okay, this is white but not quite right. The key to always remember is under the base layer or undertones should have that like yellow or brownish tinge to it, not go with just all whites or whites and grays. That's how you're going to actually make it look like fur and not just something weird and white, and I guess that's fur from the texture. All right, if you've painted up this mini, I'd love to see pictures of it, or if you've got other tips on painting fur, let me know down in the comments below. Help other people out with their miniature painting journey. And if you want to see some more process photos and behind the scenes stuff, make sure to follow us on social media. That's where we post additional photos, and oftentimes I'll post like work in progress shots on our Twitter and Instagram. A big thanks to our patrons, especially Sean. If you want to support our channel, you can head over to our Patreon page and check out the perks of being a patron. All right, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye! The Yetis are coming! The Yetis are coming! Rawr!